Hello everyone, we are back with I didn't put God first into my relationships, and so I am here. I'm here to talk about my relationships in my 20s. Also, because I am in my car, it is a very windy day, so please excuse if it sounds like wind noises or whatnot, because I am in my car. But so here we are. If you need to get caught up on the other videos, please do, so that you guys can kind of follow along. I'm going to get right into it. We're going to get right into it. So this portion is basically being blinded by what I thought was love. Blinded by what I thought was love. In my 20s, I ended up starting off with my first job at CC's Pizza. CC's Pizza was my very first job, and your girl was basically out of high school, started working, got a car with my parents' help, and was in the process of trying to figure out college. Like, what college am I going to go to? All the things. At the time, I was going to go to a college in Ohio. A lady that my mama knew from the library, basically helping kids to go to this college or whatnot. And then also I had family members who wanted me to go to Winston-Salem State. So there was different options that I had. Go to North Carolina, go to Ohio. What was I going to do? Long story short, I ended up going to community college, where pretty much where I'm back at now. So anyways, going out of state didn't work for me, but I wish I would have. And we'll get into that as we talk more about the relationship. Anyways, so working and trying to figure out what I'm going to do as far as with college and stuff. So anyways, just giving you guys an idea of what was going on around that time. Back then, and I don't want to get too deep on it, because I also wrote a video. I also did a video on this relationship a while back, talking about abusive relationships. So in my young 20s, just trying to set the picture, working, figuring out schooling and everything else during this time. The reason why I didn't go out of state was solely because of this relationship that I was in, and his name was SH. That's the abbreviations that I'm using for him. Pretty much around this time, this is when MySpace was popping, Facebook was slapping. Like, this was back when Facebook was pretty much like, you had to be in college to be on Facebook. It wasn't no everybody is allowed on Facebook. MySpace was that platform where you had posted a picture, you had a whole description of who you were. Like, MySpace used to slap around high school going into college, okay? And it was funny because, MySpace, you would go to a library if you ain't have a computer just to check your page. I would go in school on the in-school computer in high school and check my page and all of that. So it was a big thing. So, okay. Look, online dating can work for people and not. During my college years, getting out of high school, coming across people online and actually meeting people online, that was interesting. I will not hold you up. But this particular person, SH, I met him on MySpace, and very attractive young man. Found out that we knew some people from middle school. And I'm like, oh, okay. He like, yeah, I used to go to this middle school. No, such and such and such and such. One of his ex-girlfriends I knew of. And I'm like, oh, okay, So that was right there an opener to say, okay, he's been to that middle school. He ended up going to another middle school. I don't know why he left. some of the people that he knew, I was like, okay, this is familiar. So therefore, when you feel like you have familiar ground, you like, okay, it's probably safe to move forward, right? So anyways, the relationship sped off very fast, very quick. And we met. I had ended up driving, I want to say when I first met him, I ended up driving to his house. And which is funny because later down the line, I actually found out that somebody at my church knew him and basically was like, this is bad business. And then when they both kind of conversated at work and stuff like that, it was just like, yeah. But basically... And this was later down the line. By that time, I was already in the relationship. He was kind of like, this dude is not, not trying to rain on your parade, girl. But this dude is not, he not, yeah. He just ain't, yeah. So anyways, pretty much the relationship started off fast. It went fast. I don't really feel like, other than the conversations that we may have had on MySpace and then also text messages and stuff like that, it was kind of like it went fast. I met him at his house. At the time, he had a house that he was renting where him and his homeboy stayed or whatnot, and I would always go over there. Now, when I went over there, I would tell my parents that I was somewhere else, and that's another thing, not being honest with where you're really at. They knew I was talking to a guy, but they didn't know much as far as in detail, as far as like who this guy was or whatnot. So anyways, long story short, this was a relationship, like I said, that went really fast. I would go over there, and he was just a laid back type of guy in the beginning. He seemed real cool. He always dressed really nice. We would go out to dinner. He had a nice car, had a good job. And once again, just looking at the outside of like, okay, the fact that he knew people from middle school and stuff like that, I just felt comfortable. Then things kind of started to shift. But it wasn't to the point of shifting where it was like I needed to go. It was just like, oh, okay, that's a little different. I ended up getting a phone up under his name because he was, like, at the time he was really big on Sprint. And you guys know Sprint had those Nextels and all them high-tech phones, and everybody was on Sprint's tail, okay? So anyways, he wanted me to get, basically something ended up happening. I ended up getting on his line. I can't remember if he wanted me to be on his line or if I needed another phone or whatever. So pretty much it was like, okay, get this phone. Got the phone, and it was pretty much like, don't talk to no boys from this line. Don't talk to no dudes. And it was kind of like, well, what about the dudes who are my friends? It was like, no. And I think I ended up having a conversation because back then, Sprint, you can pull up the numbers. I want to say I ended up talking to somebody. He might have found out. And like I said, this was a friend. And I don't know if I really took him serious. Like, what? These are my friends and whatnot. But he noticed, he caught wind of it. And he was basically just, once again, putting his foot down. Like, you can't talk to nobody who is a male from this phone because you on my, my line. Now, when you're young and in your 20s, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I can understand probably where he's coming from. I am on his line, even though I'm paying for the other half of the bill. So that was a situation. Then it became to be like this situation of him wanting to move. He's like, I'm ready to move. I would like to move. And I was like, okay, cool. And I think it was more so of the fact of him pretty much just us talking, like, how would you feel about being a co-signer and staying there or whatnot? And, in between that, like I can't remember exactly the conversation. I just know, okay, I'm going to be on this lease with him. He was looking at apartments. We ended up finding one. He was like, are you cool with being the co-signer? I'm like, yeah, I'm cool with not. I was going to have a key access in and out of the apartment, paying my half of the rent and whatnot. Now, mind you, in between this time, you see little small things, but you don't think about it, right? Me moving with him, not really knowing too much, was definitely what you call not thinking, okay? Not thinking, did not pray on this at all. Like, okay, this is cool. Like, this is a level up from my last from my last relationship in high school, like getting a place. He had, you know, like I said, a reliable job. Everything was looking on the up and up, right? So fast forward till we get this apartment. We get this apartment. The apartment is lovely. I love it and everything. It's beautiful. And then when you feel like you're getting somewhere in life, you're not. You're not. And so, not trying to make this story long, it was a very toxic relationship. It was a very toxic relationship. It was like, I can't have company, but he could have company. It came down to, I need to eat these certain foods to gain weight. So before I knew it, it was kind of like, don't touch my food, only eat honey buns because you need to gain a little bit of weight. It was pretty much the whole thing about how I dressed and how I needed to, you know, dress a little more my age. And it was just like a 360. I was like, wow. It was just crazy. Like, he would spaz out and be upset and be mad. And it was just like, what? Like, this is not the man that I first met. But of course, like I said, it was little small signs that I did not notice. And I just continued with the relationship. There was a moment when you know, there could have been a possibility of me being pregnant. He told me to go ahead and go to the clinic and pretty much go to the clinic, get a test, get a morning after pill or whatnot. I got there, pretty much the doctor was, or the nurses, doctors who were there at that clinic pretty much were saying it was too early to really tell and pretty much come back, because as far as they didn't see anything from the test or whatnot. I opted out for my personal reasons of not taking the morning after pill as he suggested. And when I got home, to the apartment that me and him shared, it was pretty much a nightmare. It was pretty much, why didn't you take the pill? You're going to ruin my life. And it just went on from there. Me and him were pretty much back and forth, arguing. He got into this rage and started to jump on my stomach and was telling me I'm not gonna ruin his life. And it was a whole thing. It was a moment where he told me that he thought he couldn't have kids. He thought that he was sterile. It was just a up and down. Like, every time I turned around, it was something else. It went from me being a co-signer on the apartment, living there, to I think we should just be friends, give my key back. He ended up moving another lady into the apartment, and I was still paying my other half on the apartment because, once again, I'm young. I don't know how this works. I'm trying to keep my credit intact. I also have this man who pretty much kicked me out of the apartment and moved somebody in. And this sounds all crazy. Believe me, it sounds crazy. I was young, dumb, making the wrong decisions, right? Anyways, long story short, they ended up getting into it. He kicked her out the apartment. She turned stalker. And now she is that type of person who's coming up to the apartment and they're arguing back and forth. So it's just toxic on top of toxic. I come back into play as far as trying to help him throughout that situation, which is entirely crazy. And so anyways, he ends up closing the lease. Closed down the lease. He also punched a hole in the wall from when him and baby girl got into it. Because the abuse with me and him, the level of that got further. And I have told this story before. It got to the point where he was trying to burn me with an iron. He has tried to fight me, sent me to work with bruises. So that's just pretty much what I had went through. So the girl that he was with who turned stalker, I'm guessing she was the type that was willing to fight back. And she was not playing no games. So he had to kick her out. And like I said, going back to the fact of him shutting down the lease early. And then before I knew it, him having to move everything and finding places for the furniture to go, because I had nowhere for the furniture to go. I was still pretty much back and forth from my parents' house. My parents didn't know until I had to tell them that I had an apartment with this man. So the only thing I could bring back was a dresser and an end table to my parents' house. The rest of the furniture went to his mother's house. It was just crazy. It was crazy. He ended up moving with his dad temporarily, and he was trying to find other apartments, and low-key wanted me to be a co-signer on these other apartments, and it was crazy. Anyways, in between that time, we were off and on. And it was crazy because all of a sudden the garnishment started happening from the apartment. He goes ahead and files for bankruptcy. While after he filed bankruptcy, of course, they're going to come after me. It got to the point where my check was being garnished. I started to work at Burlington. Burlington was one of my newer jobs. They started to garnish that check. I wasn't making much, so you can already imagine how this is. But in between this time, I was always the type of person where I started to work 1 to 2 different jobs. So I'm starting to kind of build up working at other places to kind of, you know, help with my car note and whatever the case may be, phone bills, trying to manage that apartment at that time. So I was, you know, pretty much working. But getting back to the story, they started to garnish that check. And so I was letting him know, like, hey, they're starting to garnish the check and blah, blah, blah. And he called up to my job this particular day. I was at work. And he was upset about whatever the case may be. He was cussing me out. And I remember that day the lady had asked me, like, one of the ladies who was at the register, she was the one who answered the phone and told me I had a phone call. And he was just upset, mad. I don't know what, I can't even remember what it was. But this is just to go back to what his abusive behavior was. And mind you, he was already out of the apartment by this time. But anyways, going off, being upset, I pretty much wanted the money back. That's might have been where it was. I wanted some of the money back from me being garnished because he filed bankruptcy and didn't tell me pretty much that everything was going to come on me. I was young, didn't know much about being a co-signer. Anyways, there was so many other situations that happened after we had broke up. He lost the apartment, of course, and all of that, you know, and just the whole situation in itself was very toxic. I, like a dummy, stayed around trying to be a friend, trying to help through all these different things that he had going on. He ended up having a daughter with a girl that he said was his friend. It was crazy. He was getting the police called on him. Like, I could not make this up. Like, it was just a nightmare. And so when I go back and look at that situation in my 20s, it was like these situations are getting worse. This relationship was not any way, shape, or form ordained by God. I did not ask God about this relationship. I jumped into this relationship blind, and then the person who he really was showed up. Now, he apologized about some of the things that he did in the relationship slash friendship, because let me not forget this part. He told me that he see me more as a friend, more as a sister. And I'm like, this is crazy, because how do you see somebody like that who you've had a intimate relationship with? So I feel like his MO was pretty much using women. He used women to get what he wanted, being in these relationships, getting these cars, getting these homes, and whatever the case may be. That's just what I feel. I don't know if this man changed. I don't want to sit up here and put this man out there, you know, as this evil man, because I don't know if he has changed now. But when we were together and the stuff that I encountered, it was horrible. It was traumatizing. I was in a dark space for a long time, still trying to get into the relationships, and I wasn't 100% healed, which we will talk more about that. But anyways, this relationship was not ordained by God. This was a relationship that I solely got into. I had to accept my place in not knowing or learning much about this man before getting the apartment. And it really was a relationship that took my confidence down to a low level. I really felt bad about myself. And it was just, once again, you would feel like it should be a learning lesson. But I continue to deal with people that I shouldn't have. And I want to say it was probably solely because I didn't take time to heal. So anyways, this is concluding this portion of one of my relationships in my 20s. Blinded by love, blinded by what I thought was love, blinded by what it could have been. And it wasn't. And I didn't pray on this relationship. I didn't ask God for guidance. And so here we are. Here we are going deeper into my journey of relationships. So anyways, I hope you guys are enjoying this series. If you want, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.